a.m. Everyone rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Taylor,
Present.
Ms. Crowder, present. Ms. Rush, present. Ms. Buchanan,
Present.
Ms. Watley, Mr. Bradley,
Present.
Mr. Watson.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. May I have a motion for the approval of today's agenda?
So moved. Second.
All right, so the motion is moved by Trustee Buchanan, supported by Mr. Bradley. Questions, comments? Yes, ma'am.
Since part of the reason for this meeting is to discuss my concerns about a hostile work environment, and this concerns me personally, I would like to amend the agenda to include a closed session.
So I passed out the letter as to why you cannot go into closed session. I don't know if we have an extra copy that we can give Mrs. Rush. I passed it out to board members. Lou, could you share your copy with Mrs. Rush?
We do.
Just a letter to her?
Here's extra. Thank you.
So you sent this to me, but you didn't give it to me? You didn't email it to me?
I didn't email yet because I just did that this morning, so.
Okay, do you want to read this now?
Well, I mean, you can read it. It's, I gave it to the board so the board understands that you cannot go into closed session. The laws of policy, I think it's 9130, dictates that you have to file a complaint first before you can use the Open Meetings Act. And I think that would be Act 1, where you can file a complaint against a person such as myself or a member of the district.
We asked for a legal opinion.
Okay, so
Yeah, microphone down.
that's okay. I think we're loud enough where I can speak to it. Board Policy 9130 pretty much outlines that anytime someone files a complaint against another complaint, even, for example, a board member filing a complaint against another board member, they have to comply with Board Policy 9130. So in your particular complaint, for example, you have to meet 3 conditions. First, kind of provide what the complaint is about. Number 2, kind of indicate what you want as a remedy. And from my understanding, after reviewing part of the letter that was provided, that last part was missing. So the board, if you, for example, amended your complaint and resubmitted it to the board, then basically a hearing could be set by the board. So then they could follow the complaint procedure, which basically meant they could also issue a written decision regarding your complaint and provide you with that board hearing. So right now, the only thing that's missing is that if the complaint was amended to identify, yes, the complaint is this, the facts are this, but what is the remedy you need? And then once that remedy is provided by the complainant, this time, in this case, that would be you in this case, then we can set a hearing, but obviously that has to be voted on, go in closed session, but it would be at a next meeting, not necessarily this one.
Okay.
So it's Board Policy 9130 is the public complaints policy. We have had to use this policy in 2017. We used it, and it was then board member against the board member. So this is not like this has not been applied before, because it has been applied before Board Policy 9130 in this specific situation.
So this has to be submitted how many days before a board meeting?
I mean, you can submit it at any time, but obviously the board would have to set a time to hear your complaint. So once you submit the amended version, then the board can, or the board president likely can set a hearing date for that, which usually is gonna be at the next regularly scheduled board meeting. Then at that particular time, the item would come up on the agenda. The board would take a vote because he would then say, I want to request a closed session matter regarding a complaint. And then obviously, the person that the complaint is filed against would indicate whether they want to go into open or closed session. Likely, they would say go into closed session. Then it would have to be voted on by the board. The board, one way or the other would vote. If they don't vote to go into closed session, obviously it have to be an open, but again, then a hearing would be scheduled. Then, of course, after that, the board would have to make a written decision by the next regularly scheduled board meeting. So board policy 9130 is a Neola policy, has been in place probably since we implemented it back in 2016 under Dr. Walker. So it's been there for a while. And we did have to use it in the instance of another board member that's no longer on the board.
So I would just like to point out, Mr. President, that my request to you was in writing January 20th, which was 5 days ago. And to receive this from you this morning after the meeting.
Well, but I already told you, you couldn't go into closed session in an email. You, at that time, we sent an email to the entire board asking to go into closed session. So you had already been notified. This is not anything new. I said to you, based on the OMA, if it is legal, you can go into closed sessions. So today, it's not legal, but I did send you an email. And if I have my PC, we can pull that up.
Okay.
All right, any other questions, comments, concerns about the approval of the agenda? Please call the roll.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Ms. Crowder?
Yes.
Ms. Rush? No. Ms. Buchanan?
Yes.
Ms. Watley Seeds?
Yes.
Mr. Bradley?
Yes.
Mr. Watson?
Yes.
All right.
Motion passes.
So at this time, we have public comment. You have 3 minutes. Please state your name and address. He's gonna come and mic you guys up.
Oh, okay.
Reverend Edward Pinckney, 1940 Union Avenue, Benton Harbor, Michigan. The reason I decided to come today, I am in receipt of Ms. Rush, Dr. Rush, resignation, and I found some things in here that really disturbed me. The first one was decaying infrastructure. Pregnant women, children walking in the streets because of no sidewalk, no good transportation, huge potholes, making it impossible to drive home, in grave need of repair. No grocery stores, no pharmacies, schools in disrepair. The abandonment of Benton Harbor is a national disgrace that represents a crisis in conscience for all of Barron County. My question is, what do that has to do with the resignation? I think myself personally, when I think about the school system and you resigning and then sending it to the newspaper, I got a major problem. My problem is that you should keep everything within. If it's an issue that you can't stand Joe, you can't stand Ms. Seats or anybody else, I think it should be kept in-house. I believe that your resignation should go into effect immediately. I also believe that that you have ulterior motive when you became a school board member. I don't think that you was doing it for the good of the children. I think that you were working with other people to get information, data about our children. And I think that's my opinion. I believe that those are the things that you have utilized. One of the reasons why, according to this, that you're always at the high school and stuff like that, is you're over there to get information. And funny thing about this, we had considered recalling you in January. We know that you had to be in office at least a year before you could be recalled. And that time was up in January. But on this date, January the 14th, you had submitted your resignation. Very, very disappointed of you attacking community and giving it to the news media, who is not our friend. And I personally feel that since you plan on resigning in March, that your resignation should become effective immediately. And all data, information that you, in reference to our children, should be collected today. I believe that, I don't believe that her intentions is good. I never did think her intentions was good. And I believe that we need to do something immediately. And on that note, I would ask that that Dr. Rush resignation papers be made immediately as of today, if possible.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Marletta Seats, in Charter Township. I also was disturbed by the public paper, but now asking for private conversation, and conversation should have been held with staff about a conversation yesterday concerning Mr. Taylor with more than one staff member, and discussing hostile bullying environment in more details. They were appalled and insulted that that was brought to any staff member to have that conversation, and they're very much willing to have that notarized. And the disturbing part is also what Reverend Pickney said. If there is an issue with the potholes, that belongs to the city. If there is an issue with the pregnant women, and there's not just pregnant women in Benton Harbor, the conversations may not be appalling to some members sitting here, okay? Because I've heard members, that people that are sitting in this room now go to Lansing, talk about our churches, talk about our church members, talk about our lack of transportation, and people were laughing and thinking derogatory statements and keep painting this picture of Benton Harbor. Everybody didn't grow up in Fairplain. Some people started in the projects, and now that you arrived, and I'm not talking to any individual personally, so don't leave here and say, Miss Seats said, Miss Marletta Seats, because I know people are not related to me in order to get appointed. I realize, and I heard that also, so that's fine. But the comments about the potholes, the comment has nothing to do with Mr. Taylor. I sat on this board for 2 years. I finished my time of appointment, and there's this little small city, anything you say is being repeated. And the key is that people got on here to appease Dr. Whoever the former superintendent is without calling his name. He was the greatest thing since whatever. Then you have to deny people to get appointed. And so you set in a position of authority, not for the kids. I didn't get along with Mr. Taylor like 90% of the time, but you'll never see me not challenging his policies and things when the state was insulted about comments that came from a board member, we had to go to the federal level to get somebody to talk to the governor's office, to bring the governor back to the table. And it took almost a 2-hour conversation. Then there were meetings that this board isn't privileged to know with the governor's office that said they didn't even want to even be insulted anymore because of statements that were made, but the federal level had to step in. Then we encouraged them to set up an advisory board, not from here, but from the community, to appease the fact that there was insults that were stated and denied. And so now we're attacking an individual. It should have been internal. This should have been taken care of internally. But now it's public statements. I live in Benton Township. We got potholes. We have pregnant women in Benton Township too. But that was not my role as this board, but to make those broad statements outside of the scope of the real concern. If it was a personal issue with the individual, that's not what this board has been assigned to do by MCL laws. And I'm very astute when it comes to federal and MCL and federal laws too. And we work very well with the attorneys and things, but this really sets this district back. I don't know what the motive is, but it has set the district back. People are talking about it at state level. That went all across the state. It was just not confined here, and people wondering, why is it all the conversation all over the place? Why couldn't you all have handled it? And then to insult other board members and act like people can stay in the school, work 8 hours a day in the school. And then there were board members who were put out of the school for sitting in the library, escorted by security, or being in here 30 minutes, insulted and embarrassed, but other board members of other races can sit in. It is a civil rights concern when you can put other board members of other cultures out. But then you can accept the fact that board members can work in here 8 hours a day. There is a concern. Give me how much time I got, President Taylor.
It's over with.
Y'all don't have a buzzer?
No, ma'am, I'm sorry.
So give me just 30 seconds. And there are more relevant things to be discussing other than Mr. Taylor about the head count. Was that count turned in? Is it accurate? Is there money that's going to have to be paid back to the state? The state is having very good conversations and wondering why this is a topic of conversation. Are you getting ready to pay money back because you didn't turn in the right head count? The real estate, there's a problem with that real estate conversation. Is it included in the revenue? Are you going to be able to really balance the budget, or was numbers put in that are not going to be accounted for? This is coming from the state, and they're wondering why. This is a matter when you got more relevant and pertinent matters to be discussing instead of Mr. Taylor.
Thank you.
Can I respond or not?
You can ask a question, but you can't respond. But board members can ask the question of people participating in the audience.
No, thank you.
All right. So at this time, it's over. I'll turn it over to Mr. Tim Gardner from Shum Law Firm.
If someone, obviously I have a document that is attorney-client privilege document. So if someone would be willing to entertain a motion to go into closed session so we could discuss it.
Okay. May I have a motion to go into closed session for attorney-client privilege?
Support.
All right, supported by Ms. Buchanan. May I have a second?
Second.
So it's seconded by our Vice President Crowder. Any questions, comments, concerns before we call the roll? All right, please call the roll.
President Taylor,
Yes.
Ms. Crowder,
Yes.
Ms. Ross, yes, Ms. Buchanan,
Yes.
Ms. Wadley C.
Yes.
Mr. Bradley.
Yes.
Mr. Watson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, so at this time, the board is in closed session at 11:20. We'll hopefully resume as fast as we can. And at this time, I think, do you want us to go into another room or to have the public excuse?
If we can have the public excuse, I'm gonna pass around the document. I'll let you start reading and then we can hopefully their questions.
Okay.
Craven?
Yes.
Ms. Rush, yes. Ms. Buchanan?
Yes.
Ms. Watley?
Yes.
Mr. Bradley?
Yes.
Mr. Watson?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. So we're down to the agenda item other. Any other? Discussion items. All right. So I'd like to discuss, I want to discuss the resignation letter because I think everyone thought this board meeting was about one person, but it was about making sure that we understood our roles and responsibilities. Also, some of the things that were, everything that was in this resignation letter about me was false and defaming, right? I gave you guys a letter from Brad Berneski, the attorney for MASB, that talks about board members following the policy of visitation. So you guys know, if you look at Mrs. Rush, her letter of resignation, that is false based on the MASB attorney. So I was correct on that. If we look at the also board members micromanaging, you see the email from board Brad Berneski saying school board members are not employees of the district. They are elected officials. And board members serve as policy-making body of the local school district and may only take action as a full board at a legal meeting with no member acting alone to exercise board powers. Dr. Rush was doing that, and Mr. Taylor brought it up, and now it's confirmed through the attorneys from MASB. So that's the second false statement, and Dr. Rush's letter resonated to me, or to the board. Also, she says I instructed, or Mr. Taylor instructed me not to micromanage the district finances and told me that even though I am chair of finance, I am not allowed to submit financial resolutions to the board for consideration. Mr. Taylor believes that his power as school board president allows him to make all decisions. That's not factual. Mr. Taylor has refused to appoint me to a district curriculum committee. Board members has she ever asked to be on a curriculum committee in an email or in public? I think not. So that's a lie. And you guys know it's a lie. So what we have to do as board members too, we have to be truthful and respectful. So when someone says something that's derogatory and that's a falsehood, you guys should step up to the plate because you know it's factual or unfactual. And when it's unfactual, you guys need to say as board members, come on now, that's not the correct way to do things. And she states, I'm not the only person, meaning herself, he has constantly belittled and lectured like a child. Last fall, when Elnora Gavin applied for a vacant school board seat, Mr. Taylor subjected Mrs. Gavin to very hostile public criticism. Everyone that was at this table for the recommendation of a new board member know that that's a lie, that's a falsehood. Mrs. Gavin, I never said anything to Mrs. Gavin in her interview session. When the board got ready to take a vote as to who we wanted to choose, remember I asked for questions, comments, concerns. When you have questions, comments, or concerns, you can state them based on your board policy. That's an individual's right. So that's also a lie. And she also states that several district employees have received hostile emails from Mr. Taylor while carrying out assigned duties. You guys know that's a lie. The only emails I've sent is to interim superintendent with the board attached concerning facilities operations, concerning one of the employees driving around in our vehicles, school vehicles, etc. So I never sent anything to any member of this district other than the superintendent and the board, because that is against board policy, that is against the law. So that's another lie. Also, she states that only last week at the board meeting, Mr. Taylor made series of hostile remarks about Barron Reese and their staff. This total board sitting in this room at a Saturday retreat stated that we wanted Barron Reese facilities and operations personnel out of this district. We gave a directive to the interim superintendent. Now, if I'm lying, I'm flying. You guys all know that because you sat here and made that statement. So it's time for you guys to step up to the plate, be honest and integral when things like this happen, because you know that's a lie and a falsehood. Also, despite the fact that Mr. Taylor has not attended a single public meeting of the district's Joint State Community Engagement and Advisory Committee, I don't have to attend those meetings. We have a representative of the board, Mrs. Denise Seats, to attend those meetings. It's my choice or not if I attend a meeting. That's not a mandatory item. That's not a necessity. Also, she says the Joint State Community Engagement and Advisory Committee last week, Mr. Taylor took it upon himself to write a hostile email to the state treasurer about the state's effort to help in Harvard area schools repair our buildings. When I sent the email out, all of you board members got the email. So once again, you know that was a lie and an untruth. I stated that I emailed Deputy Treasurer and told her that in the future, items like Plant Moran, etc., has to come before the board. You guys were told the law today that all actions have to take place at the board table. So that is a lie. I never said anything to her that was derogatory. I also made a statement to the deputy treasurer, and I called her up. I says, this woman just told a lie on you. She stated that I sent you a hostile email. She says, you didn't send me anything. You board members at this table saw the email, but you said nothing. But what you guys have done is you've upheld the lie by saying, oh, we appreciate you and all this. That's great. But you should appreciate that Mr. Taylor has brought you factual information and never disrespected a single board member in the public at this table. I've always sent things through email so that we can be professional and not come out and be aberrant or dysfunctional as a board. When I send our interim superintendent an email about someone that doing something or not in this district, it's so we can take care of matters behind closed doors and not bring them out front. So you guys know that is a lie. It's time for you to step up and stop accepting stories and untruths about people, because the bad thing about this whole thing is that all the time I've been on this district, this is the second person who's tried to play the same game. That's a bad thing, right? Because what it does, a person says, I feel that I came here to help the district. Well, no, you can't. Because if you came to help the district, you would keep that type of rhetoric out of a newspaper. You would have came to the person if you thought that they wronged you. And the email that I sent the board in response to Secretary Rush's email concerning getting on the agenda was straightforward. It was about policy that she did not follow, the reason why she couldn't get on the board agenda. After today's session, you guys know the policy now. You know that Mr. Taylor was actual and factual. He did not lie. He made a factual statement. When I made the statement about you are micromanaging and coming up to this building, Dr. Rush, that was factual. The community has said it. People in this building has said it. You were told months ago, I gave everyone at this table an email. That email was a response from Dr. Rush, remember? When the board told her at a meeting to stop interfering with finances. So Mr. Taylor is not a liar. Mr. Taylor is telling the truth, but Dr. Rush is the liar today, because all of you guys got the email, and those who were at that board meeting instructed her to get out of finance. Also, remember, the interim superintendent told us at that same meeting that Dr. Ivers from Barron Risa made a statement and says that Secretary Rush was violating the law. She was in the office micromanaging. Now, either we have amnesia as a board, or we just don't want to be truthful. But I'm a person that's going to remain truthful and remain upholding of the law. And as a board member, because I took an oath. So if we're mad at people for telling you what's right, which is my right based on board policy to make a statement, violated any code of conduct, I've been respectful, I've been integral, and I've told you guys things and tried to help as a leader who's been here now for 10 years, who know better. I tried to keep you guys out of trouble and not break the law. So I hope that you guys will be integral moving forward and not allow people to try to set this board up, because Mr. Taylor didn't do this. Mr. Taylor didn't come out in public and pass out a paper and try to defame someone. Dr. Rush tried to defame me on TV. It's all over the state, but you know, the thing about Mr. Taylor is I'm battle tested and war ready. So you can never defame me because nothing gets to me. I'm here to do my job. I am the board president based on the votes. I also gave you guys an email today that in a board meeting held in this library with Dr. Rush on the agenda item stated, I feel Mr. Taylor should be board president until the end of his term. Is that not correct? You guys have it before you, but all of a sudden, Dr. Rush says in 8 months, Mr. Taylor, I can't work under him. Well, that was in October where she said Mr. Taylor should be board president until the end of his term, December 31st, 2020. So who's telling the truth and who's telling the lie? It's not Mr. Taylor. And I want you guys to make sure that you follow through and be a good board member and not allow folks to undermine this district and not allow folks to be disrespectful of this district. Because every time the foolishness goes out, it does harm to this district. This woman was disrespectful to the state governor's office. So she couldn't be on the committee with the governor's office because I remember the meeting. Myself, President Mitchell at the time, God rest his soul, and Secretary Rush. The governor asked her, why did you make those statements you made about the personnel? Dr. Rush says, well, that's old, let's get on with it. And she said, but why did you make those statements? You see, because the governor was hurt. The team was hurt. That undermined our relationship with the state to move forward. So as one of our members of the community stated today, there had to be extra efforts in order to get this thing going and create an advisory committee because of the dysfunction of one board member. There was another time we went to the state meeting with the assistant governor. That was myself, Dr. Rush, interim superintendent, and Vice President Crowder. When we left that meeting, and she stated at the next board meeting, Dr. Rush, she stated that they didn't allow us to, they didn't go through the whole agenda. Now you all that were at that meeting know that was a lie. We went through the agenda. It may have been fast on certain sections, but we did go through the agenda. But she had you guys believe that we did not. So I'm telling you, there's a person here who's been making up things. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's personal. I think it is. Because she stated on that email I gave you guys that when she wanted me to be the president till the end of my term, she also stated I don't want to be the president or the vice president. The secretary would be just fine with me. Mr. Taylor is not a liar, never have been, but I don't like the disrespect that the board as a whole has given me because you haven't stood up for right. And you haven't stood up when a person has been disintegral to a member. You guys want to pat someone else for being wrong instead of saying, Mr. Taylor, you know what? We apologize because you know you were correct and that person was incorrect. It's time for you guys to be integral, and I hope we can work together as a board instead of relying on someone's feelings and friendships. That don't count here. What counts is how we help save this district and our students. It's not about who you like and who you don't like. Get over that. There are a lot of board members, St. Joe, Lakeshore, Barron Springs, all these school boards, you think they all get along, but when they come out to the table, they act like they have respect. And I've never disrespected anybody at this table. I've never said anything derogatory to anybody at this table at a meeting. I've kept all of my statements, questions, and comments or concerns in an email because that's how integral I am. So when people come out with this garbage about me, that's disintegral, disrespectful, and it's just straight up garbage. All right. At this time, superintendent comments.
Good afternoon, board. I do first just want to apologize for not recognizing you during this month. I was given a gentle reminder, and thank you for that reminder regarding this. So I have prepared some awards for each one of you for the work that you do, your dedication to the community, dedication to the kids, your just unrelentless to continue to fight for this district and to do the right thing for the students of this district and of this community. I do appreciate that. It's not easy. I get it. It's not easy. And it's work that brings you in on a Saturday. More often than not, it's work that gets you out of your seat and having you up marching, going to Lansing to speak up for the district. So for me, to you all, each of you will get a certificate and it states awarded to your name, Benton Harbor Area Schools Board of Education for imparting your valuable insights and inspiration to the pupils, teachers, parents, and community members of Benton Harbor Area Schools. So each of you will get this. And then those are my comments for today. And thank you.
Thank you. All right, board member comments. We'll start with you, Mr. Watson.
Being the newest member on this board, I'll let Mrs. Robinson get that first. That's okay. All right. Being the newest member on this board, and coming from a place of where you dealt with a lot of things. One of the things you have to weigh yourself on or lean on is the truth. And the truth, a lot of times the truth isn't easy to do. A lot of times the truth is a hard thing to give to other people. We all live in our own truth sometimes, and we also have to matriculate between, how we feel and what's actually right. But one thing about it is that, as I said in my interview, you can disagree, but not be disagreeable. Family business should be taken care of by the family, not everybody outside of the family. I think what we've gotten to with the situation right now that we're dealing with has kind of gotten out of hand, honestly, to the point where I'm at a Martin Luther King breakfast and I'm getting asked about it. That's not right. This should have never gotten out into the public before we dealt with it and then came out and said something as a cohesive unit, as the Board of Education. Mr. Taylor, I hear your passion in it, and if there's anything that I did to you that made you think that I didn't support it, I apologize. But one of the things that I've always found out is better to take time to find out all the nuances behind it before you react than to react and then have to retract what you say. So again, when Dr. Rush gave what she gave us the last board meeting, and then coming to this, for me, it's still fact finding and gathering. And not a lot of information you gave to us today. It wasn't time to it wasn't time to stand out and say anything. So again, it's not that that from my point of view, for me, it's not a thing of not saying anything. It's that I'm going to say the right thing when it's the right time to say it. So those are my comments for this afternoon. And thank you for this time. Thanks.
Thank you.
Board President, I do want to thank you for this retreat today. I also want to thank you for giving us the guidance that we need, showing us where we need to improve on, making sure that we know our role as school board members. And I do appreciate that. If I disrespected you or if you felt that I have in any kind of way, I do apologize for that. In any kind of way, I support you as our board president. I will work with you as our board president. And whoever sits in that seat, I will work with that in any capacity. Our common denominator is our students. And that's what we really need to continue to reflect on. It's not about personalities. You know, we have to do better as a board. We have to do better as individuals, and we do need to know our roles. And we do need to study those roles and find out exactly what we're supposed to be doing. And I'm here to do that. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Vice President?
I'd first like to thank Tim Gardner for the refresher. Came at the right time, a lot of things I didn't know that I know now. So we now know that we go through you, the president, moving forward. When we have any kind of questions, we go through the president, which is the one we voted for. We need to all work together cohesively with our president and all board members. So we need to all get along and keep our personal issues actually to ourselves or a small group, and not bring personal to the public, because we're about business here for Benton Harbor.
Thank you. Secretary Rush?
So first of all, President Taylor, I apologize to you if you feel that I was rude to you. That was not my intent to hurt you personally. I brought a considerable amount of information today, which I feel are facts that support my letter. However, as everyone knows, I was unable to present them since I was denied the opportunity of a closed session because I was unaware that one piece of my request did not follow board policy. So there's another side to this story, which is not going to get heard today. I would also say, in regards to Reverend Pinckney's concerns about my letter, I did leave out one sentence, which I think is very important, which explains my concern about the families and our students, which is that there's hundreds of research articles demonstrating that the impact of poverty and the environmental conditions that people grow up in has a direct effect on educational performance. And so my concern, as we have sat through all these discipline committees, is that what we're doing, what the everybody's kind of following the regulations, both the Michigan state law and the internal discipline committee. But what we're doing is we are not, so we're, jury, like a jury, the board sits there and listens to these events. But what we're not doing, which anybody that can tell you, because right now it's Ms. Crowder, Ms. Buchanan, and I, but I believe Mr. Taylor has been on this committee before. What we see is the children that come up for these discipline hearings don't just get in one fight. They have a history of problems going back years and years. They have poor educational performance, and yet somehow these children are not getting identified by our school district. And so I think that merely following the Michigan state law about school discipline is not going to meet these children's needs. It's not going to stop the fights, and it's not going to stop the community concerns that the Benton Harbor schools are not a safe place for their children, which is what came out in the community survey that was done last summer and continues to be voiced. So I heard everything. I appreciate Mr. Gardner. I'm glad that his health has improved so he can come back to the board. But my concern has been from the beginning that if we stay I completely agree with staying within the law and the guidelines, but with a narrow perspective that judges each individual student or that looks narrowly at what the board is doing, this district will not be able to reverse the downhill enrollment figures. This district will not be able to attract students back. We will not be able to reverse the deficit. And so unless somehow, maybe Dr. Townsell will be able to provide deeper guidance. And maybe with him in place, and the board's support, maybe the state will continue to support us. But the district remains in grave condition. And so I feel that this is a wake-up call. I am sorry that it has deteriorated into a personal argument because that was not my intent. My intent was to raise the alarm bell that we need to do everything we can exactly to stay in compliance, to stay, to meet all the requirements of the Michigan State Treasury and all the requirements of MDE, as well as general Michigan law. And that our obligation to our students cannot just be what goes on within the walls of the schools. It has to be to take a hard look at the community and to figure out how more resources can be brought to the community. And I think that, again, my time is coming to an end. So there's no purpose in, giving everybody a lecture, but I hope that the board and the district will find resources, experts in education that can help identify what we can do to help our students, because I have tremendous respect, as I said in the letter, for the district employees, the teachers, the parapros, all the staff, wonderful, hardworking people. And I think that if the district again should be threatened with closure, it will be a huge loss for the community and for the students who I believe deserve more. Thank you.
Ms. Buchanan.
Yeah, I don't think I need that. Everybody can hear me. I would like to tell Mr. Taylor, I appreciate what you're doing. And I appreciate the board. And my thing is, you can't stop rumors, but people come up and say things in the community, and I just listen, go ahead. Like, if you would have to me, what happened? I said, I don't know. I was asleep. I don't say nothing. I don't give them an answer, but we as a board, I said this a long time ago, everybody remember Sam Cooke, he had a song, Change Gonna Come. Well, we have to help each other. And I know when I first got on the board, I went to 3 meetings and I didn't really want to go because they said, you can't go in the classroom and do this, you can't do that. I reported some people that was not teaching our young people. And I know our teachers, we got some excellent teachers. But they're not getting paid what they should get paid. And like I said, I don't have any problem with any board members. If I don't know, like my phone technology, I don't understand that. I don't get an email because my son brought me a laptop and I don't know where I put it. But pretty soon I'm gonna be able to get the email. I'll tell people to call me and let me know when they have a meeting. Because then I know, because I don't know I got a phone, they bought me so to learn how to do that. But what we got to do is, I was told a while back, I used to go to Lansing to my drill team in the parade. And I was told a lady that she called me, and when I got chosen volunteer of the year, she called me from Lansing and told me. And see, one thing about it, God no color line, white or black. But she told me, she said, Lou, you know what? You got people at your school, on your board against you. So I said, I don't know. So I do believe that, people that come in your face, they don't care about these kids like this Russ was saying about exposure here. I've been cussed out a couple times and I don't say nothing. And I believe if we got a president and you got several board members, you shouldn't go to the superintendent with this. And when we got to, what was it, outsourced transportation and custodian, and I said, the man, he said, tell that lady I want to see her. I said, nobody should go to him and say, Mr. Watson good, Joe good, let them find out themselves. And the man said, I appreciate what you said, and it turned out true. With the transportation, they had, everybody lost their job. The one person was on drugs. So they found that each bus driver get $1 raise, but this bus driver couldn't qualify for it. So I voted to outsource because I could see Highland Project, bus project, those kids were not going to school. If sitting on this board and make a decision, I got to sleep at night and I tell God about it. And we got to learn to respect each other, whether you white, green, gray, or whatever. Because over here, God ain't got white, black, we all the same. So we need to work for the betterness of this school board. And like I said, Mr. Taylor, I call him, sometimes I be want to say something. And they'll say it, and I said, well, I ain't got to say that. But you cannot give into the public. Then now is the time that can tell you what you're not doing right, and they're not doing nothing. So with that being said, remember this. Our board meeting is February the 4th, right?
Yes.
That's
That's our board meeting. So
Yeah.
let's bring my gift on the 4th, because my birthday is the next day. Thank you.
okay.
Already know.
Mr. Bradley.
I'm for real about that.
I know you are.
Good afternoon. Oh, board. Mr. Taylor, I would like to say, I apologize if I disrespect you in any way. I always try to listen because you have so much wisdom and insight on board service. I have a few notes here. I'm not gonna take all day because I know everybody's ready to go. I gotta go too, but we need to get a board vision established ASAP. We need to know which direction we're going. I know you want to wait till the new superintendent comes in, but we need to get on that ASAP because we need to know where we're going for the district. I mean, the superintendent can be involved, but as a board as a whole, we have to see the view from 30,000 feet of where this district is going, the finances, the future. We also have to let people know that this whole thing is going to be a marathon, not a sprint. It's going to take time for change to come. Politics are messy. I want to say that. Hard to make decisions that won't upset the students, the parents, faculty, and staff, and central administration. The decisions we make in this boardroom will impact the future of this district. And so, this whole issue now, I hate to say that it came to that, and, you want to hear both sides of the story, and the press is quick, especially in minority communities, to always want to write up a story to try to sell their, $3 Sunday paper that's only 4 pages. So, I won't say what the president of the country is saying. The media is there for a reason, but to denigrate minority communities. I do have some issues, with a lot of things that happened, probably that came up with that, but we can get into that another day. Like I said, I do appreciate Interim Superintendent Robinson, and thank you for the certificate of appreciation. We appreciate the job that you're doing, putting out fires that been going on and stuff here and stuff. So with that being said, thank you all.
Thank you. So I don't have any comments. May I have a motion to close today's meeting?
So move.
Moved by Mr. Watson. We got 2 supports. Please call the roll.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Ms. Crowder?
Yeah.
Ms. Rush, yes. Ms. Buchanan?
Yeah.
Ms. Watley Seeds? Yes. Mr. Bradley?
Yes.
Mr. Watson?
Yes.
Meeting
All right.
adjourned.
Meeting adjourned. 7:03.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, 1.
7:03.
I was wrong.
Ms. Crowder.
Yeah.
5-2.
252. Okay, go ahead.
2871.
Yes, ma'am.